Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burkhart. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is February 7th, 2024. And do you know what that means? Today, we begin Season 3 of Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart. It seems like it just took forever to get here. And I am so excited to share all of this with you because this season promises to just be amazing. The absolute best one we've had so far. I have got so many incredible authors lined up all the way through the summer already. It's going to be a fantastic season here. You do not want to miss out. Be sure to go onto your favorite podcast streaming site and subscribe to our podcast, because if you love books like we do, you are not going to want to miss a single episode of Season 3, because it's going to be the best one we have had yet. Now, don't forget, our magazine, Book Banter Magazine, dropped February 1st. If you're wanting to find out more about all of the fantastic authors who are going to be coming up in the next 2 months here on Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, you will find them all listed in the magazine. You can check out their books. They all have live links so that you can go buy them. And then you can come back every week and listen to another one, have their interview with me. There are some incredible people in this lineup. It's just, I can't say it enough. It's amazing. Now, if you've been following along on my Facebook page, where if you want to follow along with what's going on with me, that is the best place to follow me, because I'm on there every day. You can actually reach me there. If you're interested in being a guest on Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, you need to go to burkhartbooks.com, check out the podcast page, and you will see a link where you can apply to be on Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart. It's a very simple form. It just gives me the basic information I need to see how and when we can work you into the lineup. So now, I think it's time that we actually get on with today's interview. If you've been paying attention, we are beginning Season 3 with a 2-month love fest. Because with Valentine's Day falling in February when we start our season, we just thought love is way too important to just focus on one day a year. So we're going to focus on it for 8 weeks. We have got authors who wrote on all different kinds of aspects of love, from self-love, love of women-led comedies. We have love of life, how to get over the loss of a loved one, and of course, romantic love. We have got authors from everything from sweet, no heat, to very hot and spicy. You're going to love the variety that we have coming up in the next few weeks. And today, we're starting out with USA Today Bestselling author Susan Horsnell. She has over 60 books in publication, everything from traditionally published to indie published. She has got just about every subgenre of romance that you can think of. She has written Western. She has written contemporary. She has written shapeshifter, paranormal, everything that you can think of that is like the most favored tropes within romance. She's probably got a book in that area, so you really need to check her out. But for now, let's go to the interview. Please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart, Susan Horsnell. Thank you so much for joining me today. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners who you are and what you do?
My name is Susan Horsnell. I write in most subgenres of romance. I have pretty much across the board, but I do enjoy historical romance, especially Westerns set in the days of the Old West. And I was a nurse for 37 years, so it's a bit of a change of direction since I retired.
That is an impressive career. Did you have a specialty? Like, did you work pediatrics or ER or what?
Pretty much most of it. Geriatrics, ED, theatre. I finished up my career in IVF, and so my husband was a Navy officer, so I picked up what was around when we got posted.
Oh,
so
that makes sense.
being a nurse, it was pretty easy to pick up work.
That's something that we have in common too, because my husband is a retired Navy officer, but I married him after he got out of the Navy. So I didn't have that traveling around with him.
We met when we were 15, married at 18. Our first son was born when we were 19 and a half, and he did 51 years in the Australian Navy.
Wow.
So it was a very long career. So he retired, officially he retired in October 2022.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, since then we've been travelling around in our caravan, and we've been permanently on the road for just coming up for just starting 3 years.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so we have a pretty good, happy life, and I'm able to write quite a bit. I could probably write a lot more if I didn't procrastinate and go off on tangents. But
there's another thing we have in common.
Yeah. I tend to get easily distracted, and I have quite a full agenda for the next 2 years, but I seem to think, I'll write this one now, which is totally out of left field. So that normally causes a bit of grief.
That is that's so great about writing in romance, because you can write so many different genres within romance.
Yes, exactly. What I found, I started off with the Old West historicals, which were very successful, but I found that I like factual accuracy, and I found that you were limited by that.
Yeah.
My imagination was a bit bigger than historical facts. So I branched into contemporary and used a lot of my life experiences and nursing experiences in that. And then I decided with things like I worked with the blind for many years. And so I thought, now, what would it have been like for somebody back in the 1800s living on a ranch if they were blind? And so one of my books comes from a child who's blinded in an accident, and his father finds it very difficult to accept him, and they get a nanny in who teaches him Braille, and as I used to, teaches him just normal everyday coping. And I spun it into a 2-part story, and in the second part he actually goes to university and studies to become a lawyer at Boston University, which is where Little House on the Prairie lady was at. But I can't remember her name, Mary, I think. So I wove a lot of my own experience with the Blind Centre through that story from a historical viewpoint, because back in those days, if you were blind, they also thought you were insane.
Yeah.
Or mentally disabled. And so they tended to just shove them away in asylums.
Yeah.
And so, I sort of put a bit of a twist on it and set it back in those days and showed that, it would have been really, really difficult. I mean, living on a ranch with all the, accidents just waiting to happen. And I brought in a governess who actually helped him to tackle and learn, because he's only 6 when he's blinded. So I wrote a lot of that. I have very, very dear gay friends who encouraged me to write some gay stories. So I branched off into gay romance. I've gone into mafia romance, which I've got with a traditional publisher. And I set that in Papua New Guinea, where we lived for 3 years. So I wrote in some of the funny experiences and some of the witch doctor practices and, the different puri men, all that sort of thing into that book. So, I wrote a lot of subgenres of romance and try and weave some of my own experiences into them at the same time.
What's really interesting is, I write a historical fiction series as well, but it's not romance, it's just straight historical fiction. And I have found that I tend to fall down rabbit holes doing research, trying to make sure that everything is accurate. And I actually keep thinking I would almost rather create a new world and do like a off-Earth Western on another planet where I can just create my own history, because it would be so much faster.
Yeah. It is a bit of a rabbit hole. We actually toured all of Texas. We didn't do the normal Aussie visit in the USA. We did Texas and Louisiana, all the deep south, and of course we visited Elvis Presley's home and all that sort of thing. But while we were in Texas, I was fascinated by a lot of the history that I wasn't aware of, particularly in San Antonio with the Spanish missions. And I mean, everybody knows about the Alamo, but there was so much other history there that was associated with the Wild West.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You fall, and I found that we just spent a year in Tasmania, which is the island off the bottom of Australia, our fifth or sixth state, I can't remember which. And it was originally called Van Diemen's Land.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was settled pretty much by convicts. And when we went down to Tasmania, we went for 4 months because my husband had spent some of his growing up years there. And we had visited, but we'd never spent any real time. So we thought, we'll go down for 4 months. So we put the caravan, which is an RV, on the ferry with our car and our dog, and off we went down there. Well, it turned into a year, and we still haven't seen everything, and we're going to go back eventually. But I found down there was so much history that I had no idea about. Now, I love history and I read a lot, but there was so much that I wasn't aware of. And the thing that struck me was the island had 4 female factories. And what they were convicts exported from England for things as silly as stealing a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
But the youngest convict was 9 years old.
Oh, my God.
And it was a little boy. I made a little girl in my story, but it was a little boy, and he stole a toy soldier. And he was transported to Australia, and he actually went to Port Arthur, which was the main convict settlement. But we had these 4 female factories, and I thought these stories need to be told.
Yeah.
And they were young women, and they were just as they sound. They were female factories. And so the women produced some of the finest leather shoes in the world. And they made baby bonnets and baby outfits and, but the hardships. And the first one I've written is about the Cascades, which is in Hobart at the base of Mount Wellington. And the conditions there were horrendous. And then there was one that's on the south of the island. There was one towards the middle of the island called Ross Female Factory. There was another one further north in Launceston and one further north again in Georgetown. And you know that Georgetown and Launceston have been completely obliterated. There's a plaque in Launceston, but there's nothing at all in Georgetown to show that there was ever a female factory and the hardships those women suffered. And I find that horrendous.
That's definitely something that people need to be made aware of. And the fact that you can do that through fiction, where people can actually be learning true history, but in a entertaining sort of way, that's amazing.
Yeah. It gave me a passion for writing those books, and I've actually written them under a pen name. The first one's out, the Hobart, as I said, the Cascades Female Factory, that's out. And I plan to do a series, like I'll do the other 3, but they won't be interconnected. They'll all be female factory stories, but not connected because they didn't know each other. So, it wouldn't be practical to do that. But I am going to do a series as well down at Port Arthur, which I've visited a few times. And that's just, it's just the most amazing historical establishment and I'm like a sponge when it comes to anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it's just, our lost history is particularly on that island. I tend to be very nosy. Being a writer, I think, makes you a bit nosy.
Yeah.
And we stopped in at a lake on the island, and I thought, I'll just go for a walk. And I walked up the side of a mountain, just not very far, but up the side of a mountain. And there was a grave there to the first sheriff in Tasmania.
Oh, wow.
In Van Diemen's Land. Nothing, absolutely nothing indicated it was there. So It was just purely by chance that I found this grave of the very first sheriff in Tasmania.
That is so cool. That's sad that there's nothing that marks it to let you know that it's there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, and that's why I thought, well, I have a very full agenda. I write multi-author series. They stand alone, like Corinne. It's a standalone book with a common theme, but they don't interconnect at all in any way. And so I've got commitments to a few of those over the next couple of years, as well as, some other books that I need to get out. But I will get there. I'm learning to say no when I'm asked into these things now.
That's so hard to
I
do,
say
isn't
yes
it?
a little. Yeah, I say yes a little too easily. But I've got. I do it all. I write paranormal, shapeshifter, basically anything that enters my head. I'll put pen to paper and literally and write it. So yeah.
That's
So
fantastic.
I handwrite my stories and then type them up.
Oh, wow. That's
Mm.
one thing. My
So
mother does it like that too. She doesn't like writing on the computer. She likes writing on just like a legal notepad, and then she'll put it in the
yeah,
computer later, but she has to do it with pen and paper.
yeah, I do too. I do too. I write pen. I mean, I have 10,000 million notebooks. I have so many notebooks with me,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, and I still buy more. But I find if I handwrite it out on pen and paper, and then when it comes time to type up, it's a huge jolt for, oh, I'll just add that in there as well, and I'll add that in, and I'll tell them about that. So
Mhm.
it really, I end up writing 300 words, and which translates to about 1,000 once I get on the computer.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and I do it chapter by chapter.
That's
So,
such a great process.
yeah, it
And
works for me.
and I think doing it that way would actually help you whenever it's going into the computer, it would be a lot cleaner because you're making that
Yes,
transition and you kind of edit as you're doing the type in.
yes, exactly. Exactly, and you add things, and I'll delete. I think no, that's rubbish. That doesn't need to be in at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just how I work, and it's just how it's what works for me.
Now, that makes me curious though. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
A pantser, absolutely a pantser.
Yeah,
So,
me too.
and without fail, I must have 60 something books out on the market now, both
Mhm. Oh, wow.
traditionally and indie. And without fail, I get to 10,000, and it's like a curtain drop, and I'm
Hmm.
stuck. No matter which book I'm writing or what I'm doing, that 10,000 word mark, bang. And
Wow.
and then it takes me a few days to get going again. And I
That's
have
really
no idea
interesting.
what that's about. Yeah. So I
Now,
have no idea why that happens.
since you are a well-established author, I wanted to ask because there's so many indie authors who listen to this podcast that they're just starting out.
Yep.
How many books do you think you had on the market before you actually started to see a good profit margin coming in from them?
I was a little bit different because the very first books I put out were a contemporary historical western. So they weren't sweet and clean like a lot of the westerns I write now, like Corinne that you've got.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, they took off, and that established me. And it's why I write all genres of romance without using a pen name,
Mm-hmm.
because I did try that, and my readers said, look, we'll read anything you write, and we don't want to have to go searching. So how
Yeah.
I separate it now is I have my website, and my sweet, clean romances are on the very first front page, so that anybody that only reads those can see them all there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to go further into the website. So when I promote, I only ever promote that page of the website, not my actual entire website with all the links.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's how, because I have quite a large following of sweet Christian readers. Um, so, so as not to offend them, and they know I write the other stuff. It's just I don't want them picking it up by mistake. So I make it very clear which is which. Because a lot of my readers, even my gay romance readers, love my sweet westerns.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll pretty much read anything that I write. So it's just mainly to protect those readers.
That's amazing. I have not gotten to that point yet.
So I just don't want to offend them, and so this way the readers that will read anything that I put on paper, they're happy with whatever they see. But and they said to me, don't hide those from us with a pen name.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, fair. And it makes it easier for me because I've only got one lot of marketing then under my own name.
Yeah, be much easier.
But as I said, I have put the Australian Historicals, the Van Diemen Land one, under a pen name, my grandmother's name, actually.
Oh. See, I can understand. It is so much easier to market when you're just using your name and not like all these pen names. Because my first series, I actually wrote as Stephen Burkhart, and it even had like my dad is the face for that series.
Yeah.
It was almost impossible for me to market those books because I can't do interviews as the author. Trying to write under pen names and keep anonymity is like almost impossible to market the books well. Yes,
yeah. See, I know that there's a lot of girls out there that say I have no choice, I have to write under a pen name because if my work finds out this and if my work finds out and I don't want the family to know and all the rest. And I respect that. But from my point of view at my age, to be honest, I don't care who knows what I write.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother and father were my biggest fans. They've read all my westerns and he wasn't keen on the sweet westerns because he liked a little bit of gore, but he read all my westerns. My mother read everything. No matter how steamy it was, my mother would read it.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote the second in my Outback series at her bedside when she was dying from pancreatic cancer. And I wrote the second in that series at that time, which is almost 5 years ago, and I still haven't written the third, fourth, and fifth because I went off on the tangent. So it was something that, I think that's my age, and even when I was in nursing, I really didn't, I can't say I didn't care what people think, but I did what was right for me.
Yeah.
And if they couldn't handle that, then that was their issue, not mine.
Yeah. There's some people that, it would cost them their job, but then whenever it's not going to do that, I kind of wonder, what kind of situation the person is in whenever they have to make their choices. But in the end, you always have to make whatever choice is going to be best for you.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't know their situation. They could be getting out of a domestic violence position where, they can't make it known where they are and what they're doing. So, I don't condemn them for it, but it's not something I need to do in my life. So, and I'm very proud to say my husband actually read the first book of mine, so last week or the week before. So I'm just writing a couple of books in a multi-author series set on the Oregon Trail.
Oh, nice.
And I've been talking about them so much that he got really interested and he actually read it and he liked it. So, so he doesn't like the rude books, he says. But he's he's always been completely supportive. Not that it wouldn't matter if he wasn't, because I'd still write, but it's nice to have a partner that's on your side.
Oh, exactly. It is amazing how much it helps when you have that support in the home with you. It's like, because I know I would not be able to do everything that I am doing if it wasn't for my husband's support. He actually pays for this podcast. Yeah.
It's a real bonus to have a partner that supports you.
Oh, definitely.
So, I'm very pleased, very grateful that, he does, even though, as I said, he's not one for reading. He's very much a non-fiction reader.
Yeah.
So he's not into the romance stuff.
Yeah, same with my husband. He'll read anything that is like military strategy, the art of
Yep,
war, that kind of stuff.
yep,
He's reading Arnold
yep.
Schwarzenegger's biography right now. My
Oh,
my
okay.
my story about the orphan train in 1859 Kansas is not really up his alley.
No, and that's fair enough. I mean, my husband reads things like Winston Churchill and,
Yeah.
the Battle of Britain. And
It sounds like you
so,
guys
yeah,
need to come visit Germany and hang out with us because my husband and your husband would really get along and you and I can go talk about history books.
yeah. It's really interesting when you said you're in Germany because my aunt was actually in Bergen-Belsen
Oh my God.
during the war, and it was how my family are all British, so
Hmm.
I'm actually a dual citizen. And it was how my uncle met my aunt. He was with the British Liberation Forces that came down through the north of Germany, and that was how he met her. She was in Bergen-Belsen with Anne Frank.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, we have a very interesting history. I have, as I said, she was German. They followed my mum and dad out to Australia, along with one of my dad's brothers and my mum's sister and her father. And the rest of all my family are all still in the north of England. So
I can't even
we have,
imagine the
we,
strength that it had to take to survive something like that.
yeah, she suffered all her life, but she did live a long life. I think she was 93 when she died 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
It left her with heart failure because when they were ready to liberate, the camp was riddled with typhoid, which is
Ugh.
what killed Anne Frank.
Hmm.
And Goethe and my aunt, they actually came down with typhoid but survived. But my aunt had a weak heart all her life. Yeah, it was quite incredible, but her life wasn't shortened because of it. Yeah, my dad, he was conscripted, as they were back in those days, 1951, and he got sent as part of the United Nations peacekeeping forces to the Mau Mau Rebellion in Kenya. He used to tell me a lot of stories about what happened over there, and he spoke fluent Swahili. So,
Wow, you
but
have an incredible family history.
yeah, I do. He was in military police with the British peacekeeping force, and he met an Australian man there, Australian Army guy, and it was the Australian Army guy that sponsored them out to Australia as £10 poms. So when he went back to England, he couldn't see much of a future there, and so he up family and out he came and settled in Sydney.
Now, do you bring any of your personal family history into your work? Because that's a rich pool of information.
Yeah, I haven't as yet because I've been putting my own in. But my father was an incredible soccer player, and his great uncle is the only soccer player to have been was the only soccer player to have been knighted
Oh,
for his
wow.
um, services to soccer. And my father was also part of the British gymnastics team. So yeah, there's some quite interesting bits and pieces in there in the background there. And one day I will write into my book, but I've just got to find the right place to put it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Mm, yeah.
definitely need the right
So
venue for that because it's too incredible to just stuff in like odd bits here and there. It deserves some
yeah,
reverence.
yeah, and I think really that it needs to be done from a non-fiction point of view
Hmm.
rather than a fictional point of view. But I'll get there. If I can stop saying yes to everything, I will get there. I mentor a lot of new authors, and help them get established, and so I'm pretty busy.
Now, one thing that I think we do need to mention too is that you are a USA Today bestselling author. And I was wondering, what
I
book
am.
was it that got you on there first?
Okay, it was a book called Yesterday's Crush, and it's only a short story, and it was as part of an anthology.
Oh,
that it
wow.
went into. And the anthology it took off, absolutely took off. So we were very lucky we hit the USA Today list quite high. But I've also I was Western Author of the Year in the United States with the Western Forum or something it was called.
Mm-hmm.
I've been nominated for a Roan Award through IndieTale magazine, and I've won a couple of other awards as well for different diving to the top. Won an award as Best Contemporary Romance. So, yeah, I've been very fortunate. Very
Now,
fortunate with
the
my
title that
writing.
we were focusing on today was A Cowboy for Corrine. It's part of your Mail Order Papa series.
That's right.
How many books do you have in that series?
Only the one in that series. I have one in the Mail Order Mama series and one in the Mail Order Papa, because at the time I just couldn't have fitted two in.
Mm-hmm.
I took on two in the Oregon Trail series because they're best friends and I wanted to tell both their stories. But back to Corinne, I just wanted to pair it up with the Mail Order Mama. So that was, and I really enjoyed writing it. I really enjoyed the story.
Mm-hmm. So what is that one about?
It's about a woman who is on a ranch in Texas and her husband suffers an accident and he's killed. She has two young boys and she's struggling to run the ranch. Even though she's got very good foremen and ranch hands, she's struggling to run it and she needs a husband. So it's a twist on the mail order bride. He's a mail order groom.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a fisherman off the Gulf in Texas, and they're made up towns.
Mm-hmm.
He decides that he's had enough of fishing, and he's always had a hankering for his own ranch, and he's been saving hard. And he just happens to pick up a Gazette that has her advertisement for a mail order husband in it, and he answers the advertisement, and she invites him out there. He stays in the bunkhouse. But what she neglects to tell him is that she has two children.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of the actual brief, is in both stories, is that the mail order bride and the mail order, in this case the mail order groom, weren't to know about the children when they arrived, until they arrived.
Yeah.
And then they get a shock and it causes a few hassles and a bit of dissent and whatever. But it covers them getting to know each other and leading up to their marriage. But she has a secret from her past that comes back and almost destroys her life and his. So, that of course, it has a happy ever after.
And that one I noticed is very well received. It has like a 4.7 rating in reviews on Goodreads.
Yeah, it's only been out a month. Not even that long, I don't think. So, yeah, I have a huge following in those sweet westerns, and I tend to put a lot of Christian values through them,
mm-hmm.
and they just sit well with people. I usually have a lot of pre-orders on those.
Mm-hmm.
My Oregon Trail series already have a lot of pre-orders on them, and they're not due out until March and May. And I get a lot of reads, hundreds of thousands of reads. So, yeah, they're just something that those readers really like. You know, I've just found a niche with them, but it's just I can't write them all the time. They're very difficult for me to write.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I find that really interesting because the books that I write are also like kind of Christian-based fiction. I didn't intend to be that way, but it just sort of came out that way. And they are listed a lot of time under Christian historical fiction reads. But I have a really hard time connecting readers to that book series. And it's been a very slow process for me. What kind of a tip would you give for somebody who's wanting to write those kinds of books for them to be able to reach readers the way that you have?
Most of the readers are what's commonly known throughout readership. I'm not sure I really like the but they call it the Bible Belt readers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking for two things. They're looking for clean Christian writing, and they're looking for romance. So without romance, I think you would struggle. They want that girl meets boy and it's all very sweet and they court and, eventually they settle down. But I usually, I throw a lot of twists and turns, and I really skate the edge a little bit with some of them, just to liven them up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how my first Oregon Trail book is received, because I actually have the death of a baby in that one.
Oh.
But that happened on the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, that happened a lot.
That was a fact. And it was very integral to, she ends up with their 3 children for the rest of the trail. This happens halfway into the trail, and so she ends up with these 3 children that she has to look after until they can find if they've got any relatives. And it's an integral part of the story. So, but I'm waiting to see how that gets received, because it was, thousands of people lost their lives on those trails.
Oh, yeah.
And what I've written into this story actually did happen. The baby died at birth, and the mother committed suicide by throwing herself into the Snake River. So it is an actual factual incident.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, it sort of skates that edge. So it will be interesting to see what sort of pushback I get on that one. But I think what catapulted me, what gave me that step up, was I joined a multi-author series called American Mail Order Brides. And there were 52 of us, and we each had a state. And I did South Dakota. I did Cora of South Dakota. And a lot of big Western writers were in that series.
Mm-hmm.
And my book hit #1 right on every platform in every country of Amazon.
That's amazing.
Hit #1 straight off. People loved it. And then they started looking for more. And so multi-author series became more popular and more common. And I got asked into some, and then there were others that I applied to go into. And so it gave me that kick start, and then it followed on from there. With everything I write, they want to read. So that was what turned the corner for me. The other thing that turned the corner was my blog actually took off. I have no idea why. I did blogging for a couple of promotional companies, where I blog new releases, cover reveals, sales, and all that sort of thing. It's purely a book blog. I don't put anything personal or anything like that on it, but I have 10,000 followers and 780 subscribers.
Wow.
So
very nice.
I have a huge reach through that. So I always say, to a lot of the authors, if you want me to post, give me a yell. They rarely will, because they seem to think I want something from them, but I never charge. I just put it up. So I do it for 2 companies, which gives a fair few authors a bit of a help. And then that has I have a Facebook page that links to it as well. It's called Books Glorious Books. And so the Facebook page links to it as well. And anyone that's a member can post anything book related on that as well. So,
very nice.
So
that's one thing that I've noticed about the book community that I've been getting more and more into the last couple of years is there are so many authors who are willing to help other authors along. A lot of people think that we're all competing against each other and we're all trying to outdo each other. And that's really not the case for the vast majority. We're more of a community of people helping each other.
Yep. I agree. There are cliques out there where it's all about them, but that's in life.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not exclusive to the book community. So there are some that, they will take, but they won't give.
Yeah.
But I think that it's the old story. Everybody rises if they work together.
Exactly.
So, divided they fall. So, and And that's why I say to people, I want nothing. I don't even, like, I'll say, I've got a newsletter going out. Do you want something in it? Yep, no worries. What can I put in mine? Well, I haven't got anything I want in yours at this time. I don't expect something for something.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to impress that on people is really difficult. I'm just quite happy to help them.
Yeah.
I'm in a fortunate position where writing is my passion. It's not my business. It's not my job. I had a job. I retired from that. I don't want another one.
Yeah.
So, and we're financially very well off. So if I can help somebody else achieve their dream, I enjoy doing that.
Well, it's like recently somebody was asking me, it's like, how much do you charge to have people on your podcast? And I'm like, I don't charge people to come on my podcast. I promote authors that I like what they're doing with their career. Like, this is about journalism and promotion, bringing good authors to readers. It's not marketing. Or I guess I should say it's not paid marketing. People aren't paying to be on here. It is marketing.
Yeah, it is. It is, but it's not that formal, pay $600,000 million and one arm and one leg type marketing. Yeah. And I think, and it's certainly the hardest part of the business is the marketing side.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to put yourself out there. It's not easy. It's really not easy. And you've just got to persist and you've got to network and you'll find the right people to give you that step up.
Yeah. And it can take time. Sometimes people, do great. They get a hit off the bat and they can ride that through their career. But that is the minority. People don't really understand how much work behind the scenes it really is, especially for indie authors who are trying to figure this all out on their own.
Yeah, exactly. And look, to be quite frank, traditional publishers don't do a whole lot either.
Yeah. That's one thing that I think most people are surprised about. They think, oh, I'll get a publishing contract. They're going to do all kinds of marketing. They're going to set me up, for all of this. All I have to do is write my book and I'm done. It's like, no.
No.
It's like you still have to promote your own stuff. You still have to do all the marketing.
Exactly. So it isn't. It's the part of it that I hate.
Mm-hmm.
But I sort of push through, and I've got a good team of promoters that promote a lot of my work for me.
Mm-hmm.
They get all my books before they go live, and they get them all free, and they usually get a Christmas present off me.
Nice.
So they do a lot of promotional work, across social media for me as well. So, I'm very fortunate to have. There's 7 ladies, and I'm really fortunate to have them.
Everybody needs that kind of support.
You've just got to slog away at it, I mean, it must. I think it was about 4 years before I really turned that corner, and now I'm trying to sort of take the next step up. You can't sit back and expect it to happen or for others to do it for you.
Yeah.
You've got to do it yourself.
Now, this is the point of the show that we like to do 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but we will never give up on this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Number 1, Australia is known for having so many dangerous animals. Have you ever encountered any of them?
I have encountered snakes and crocodiles and spiders, but not often. And they're not usually in towns and cities. You've got to be pretty much in the outback.
Yeah. So, I think that's one of the misconceptions that people have, is that they're everywhere.
Yeah. No, they're not. They're not.
So now, question 2. What is your favorite or easiest romance trope for you to write?
The easiest. The favourite, I love writing gay romance. I really do love it, and it flows the easiest for me because the gay couple who I adore give me a lot of hints and tips and ideas.
Nice.
I love it. I've never been able to quite crack that niche, but I write it for me because I just love it.
Well, see, and I have another friend that I went to college with, and she's, heterosexual married woman who also writes male romance books.
Yep.
And she loves it. And I was asking her, it's like, why do you love doing that so much? And she said, because it's easier to get out of her head. She's not putting herself in the position of her characters, so she can write it from a completely outside perspective.
As an observer, exactly.
She said that she just finds it so much easier. And most of her readers are also heterosexual women. That's the reason that they read them too, because they're not putting themselves into the book. They can read it from an outside perspective.
Exactly.
It's really fascinating, the whole thing about this. I love it.
Yeah.
So question 3, who do you read for entertainment?
My favourite book of all time is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I don't think anybody paints a picture with words like she does. Nobody I've read. I read a lot of obscure authors because I'm an avid reader. I love to read, always have. But I find that if a book is really hot and everybody loves it, it's going to be one that I don't finish. I just don't seem to enjoy what everybody else does. So I read a lot of gay romance. I read a lot of westerns. I read a lot of what I write. Do I have a favourite author? Not these days, no.
Let's see. So question 4. If you had to live in any of your books for a month, which one would it be?
Love Hawaiian style. I'd live in Hawaii for a month at the drop of a hat with my husband. I adore Hawaii. So, yeah, I would definitely. And it's a gay romance of 2 police officers. And it deals with a murder, but it's got quite a humorous side. And the characters in that book I just adored. They were just terrific. So, and set in Oahu, we'd be back there tomorrow. No problems at all. Yeah.
Now, question 5. What is a misconception that you think people have about romance authors?
Look, I honestly believe that what people think romance is trashy, that it's not real writing. And there are some brilliant romance authors around. You know, the definition of romance I question, but I think that people don't give it a fair go. They think that if they read crime or mystery or something like that, that they're better than romance writers and readers.
But the thing is, you can have crime and mystery and all of that within romance books.
Yeah, exactly. For some reason, there's a lot of people out there that think, oh, it's just trashy writing. And it couldn't be further from the truth.
I think they assume that all romance is hardcore erotica.
Yeah.
Or smut. And it's like, no, there's romance and then there's smut. there's a degree, there's like a gradating scale between all of it. I mean, you can have all of that within romance. That's the one thing that I don't think people realize. You can have anything within romance.
Yeah, you can. That's why I say I write romance, and I write a lot of subgenres of romance. My sticking point is the definition of romance, that it has to have a happy ever after or happy for now. I mean, because for me, one of the greatest romance stories is Love Story. I mean, the romance in that was just absolutely wonderful. So, yeah, I struggle with this happy ever after stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think, romance doesn't have to have a happy ever after ending. Real life romance doesn't. I've known people who have lost their partners who have had the greatest romance I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I struggle with the definition. I really do.
Remind everybody again, who are you and what is the book that we are pushing for you?
Okay, my name is Susan Horsnell, USA Today Bestselling author, and my latest book, released in December, is A Cowboy for Corinne, which is a Western with a whole heap of twists and turns and intrigue.
And where can people find you and your books?
The book is per multi-author series. It is Amazon exclusive, so it's only at Amazon in Kindle Unlimited. But I do have a lot of my other books across all other platforms. So if you just Google Susan Horsnell, I come up all over the place.
You do. Whenever I was looking you up for the interview, it's like it was very easy to find information on you. I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy.
Yeah, I am on Facebook. I have my Facebook group. I have an Annabelle Vaughan page. I'm on X, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok. So you'll find me pretty much everywhere.
And as always, all of your information is going to be in the description of the podcast, along with live links so people can easily find you and all of your work.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this interview today. You are just absolutely wonderful, and it's been delightful talking to you.
Well, thank you.
I don't think I've ever run into an author who I've had so much in common with.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. I'm pretty down to earth. I think nursing makes you pretty down to earth.
Oh, I would imagine.
Thank you for having me, Diane. I really appreciate it.
So there you have it, my happy people. The incredible Susan Horsnell. She is so much fun and just a delight to talk with. You need to go to her website and check out her catalog of books. There is something there for everyone. Now, next week, we have Elizabeth Teets coming up with her book, Isn't She Great? Women-Led Comedies from 9 to 5 to Booksmart. She is an incredible person who started out her career in stand-up comedy and has transitioned to writing articles and now her first book. You'll definitely want to come back and hear all about it. If you'd like a little sneak peek of what we're going to be talking about, don't forget to go to burkhartbooks.com and check out this month's issue of Book Banter magazine, where you can find Susan Horsnell and Elizabeth Teets and all of the other authors who are going to be coming up in the next 8 weeks of our Love Fest. And also in the next few weeks, I'm going to start giving a few little sneak peeks of my medical memoir that I'm currently working on. Free Bad Haircuts with Each Craniotomy, about the year where I went through 7 surgeries in 6 months, and 6 of those were brain surgeries. I even got a MRSA staph infection after brain surgery number 5, which actually killed me for a little while. That was an interesting experience too, and it's all going to be in this book. So be sure to keep checking back every week. We have got so much amazing stuff coming up for you in season 3 of Book Banter with Dianne Burkhart. You do not want to miss a single episode. But now you know what time it is, folks. It's time for you all to go forth and be really happy that season 3 is finally here. I know I am.